Harry is not the greatest and most intelligent bunny on the planet, and I've said this many times. And quite frankly, he very rarely engages brain before he engages mouth. And to say something like that, which to the Americans, Elvis was an icon, and he was an icon to a lot of pop rock music fans. So to say that is just absolutely ridiculous. It almost sounds like attention seeking. In the hope that somebody is going to have a go at him, that he can have a go back.
The controversy wasn't supposed to get this big. It was supposed to be another polished appearance, another carefully managed headline, another moment designed to reinforce a very specific image. But instead, it exploded into a question that refuses to go away. How can someone stand on an international stage warning the world about the dangers facing children online, then return home and post images of their own children on the very platforms they criticize? That contradiction has ignited a firestorm, and now insiders, royal commentators, and longtime palace observers are pulling apart every detail, searching for what they believe is the real story hiding beneath the carefully crafted public narrative. What makes this situation even more explosive is that it touches two of the most powerful forces in Martin culture at the same time: children and publicity. Few topics trigger stronger emotions, and when royal connections, social media influence, branding, and accusations of hypocrisy all collide in one story, the result becomes impossible to ignore. Suddenly, every post, every photograph, every statement begins to look less like an isolated decision and more like a piece of a much larger puzzle. According to critics, the issue isn't simply whether faces are shown or hidden. That's only the surface argument. The deeper question is why the images are being shared at all. Because once a child becomes part of a public narrative, once their presence starts generating headlines, engagement, discussion, and attention, many believe the line between protection and promotion becomes dangerously blurred, and that's exactly where this controversy now sits. Then came Geneva. Meghan arrived at a global event speaking passionately about online safety, digital responsibility, and the need to protect children from the dangers of social media. On paper, it sounded admirable. The message itself was difficult to disagree with. Children deserve protection. Parents should be cautious. Platforms should be held accountable. It was a message designed to resonate with concerned parents everywhere.
Meghan Markle just doesn't seem to understand that if she's going to stand on this issue of internet safety, the first and foremost place that you must see this is on Meghan Markle's own Instagram page, which she refuses to do. She's trying to monetize everything, and it's impossible not to believe that Meghan Markle knows that posting her children generally gives her a bit more engagement.
But the problem wasn't the speech. The problem was what happened afterward. Because almost immediately, attention shifted from the words she delivered to the actions that followed. Critics noticed the timing. They noticed the contrast. And suddenly the conversation was no longer about child safety. It was about whether the messenger herself was following the principles she had just promoted. The backlash intensified because observers weren't merely looking at one Instagram post. They were examining a pattern they claim has repeated itself over and over again whenever attention begins to drift, whenever a new venture requires momentum, whenever public criticism starts building. Images connected to family life somehow find their way into the spotlight. Coincidence? Supporters say yes. Critics say absolutely not. What makes this even more fascinating is that some experts argue partially hiding children can actually create more curiosity than showing them openly. Human nature is strange. Mystery attracts attention. The more people feel something is being concealed, the more determined they become to investigate it. And according to some commentators, that dynamic can create exactly the kind of unwanted scrutiny parents claim to be avoiding.
This is another example, frankly, of her rank hypocrisy, going to Switzerland to talk about child safety online and then a few days later issuing pictures of her own children. It doesn't matter whether you can see their faces or not. The fact is she's using those to build her brand whilst telling the rest of us that we shouldn't use our children or we should be cautious if we did. Now, I don't buy the explanation from her people because I just think it's rank hypocrisy.
As the debate intensified, another uncomfortable question emerged. If privacy is truly the goal, why maintain any public exposure at all? Why not simply keep family moments private? Why not store photographs in personal albums instead of placing them on platforms designed specifically to maximize visibility and engagement? That question refuses to disappear because social media isn't neutral territory. Every image becomes content. Every interaction becomes data. Every click becomes part of an algorithm designed to push material further and further into public view. Once a photo enters that ecosystem, control begins slipping away, and that's where critics claim the real issue lies. They argue this isn't about proud parenting. They argue it's about branding. The accusation is harsh, but it keeps resurfacing. Observers point to carefully timed uploads, emotionally resonant captions, strategic releases during major news cycles, and what they describe as an increasingly sophisticated lifestyle image built around family, authenticity, and relatability.
If you're so concerned about the anonymity of your children, don't photograph them and don't put them online. And if you want to photograph them, put them in an album, keep them on your phone, keep them on your computer, but don't put them online. It's no good putting them online and then expecting anonymity, because it just ain't gonna happen.
The timing of these moments has become one of the most scrutinized aspects of the story. Critics claim the appearances rarely feel random. Instead, they appear precisely when maximum emotional impact can be achieved. Birthdays, anniversaries, product launches, reputation challenges, moments when public sympathy or public attention can be redirected. Whether that's true or not, the perception itself has become a major problem, because once people begin questioning intentions, every future action is viewed through a different lens. Suddenly, an innocent family photo is no longer just a family photo. It's evidence. It's strategy. It's part of a larger theory. And once that happens, escaping the narrative becomes nearly impossible. The debate only intensified when observers started examining the commercial side of the Sussex brand. Critics began connecting family imagery to broader business efforts, arguing that emotional connection has become one of the most valuable currencies in modern marketing. A relatable family story can often sell products more effectively than any traditional advertisement.
Meghan and Harry own their kids' names. They own the domain names, they own the emails, they own everything else. When turning Archwell Foundation into Archwell Philanthropies, they said it was for a family thing so that their children could be involved.
That realization transformed the discussion entirely, because now critics weren't talking about privacy. They were talking about monetization. And when children become connected to commercial narratives, emotions run even higher. Questions started multiplying. Were these merely family moments being shared, or were they components of a larger branding strategy? Were children being protected from public attention or gradually integrated into a public image designed to maintain relevance? The more commentators explored those questions, the bigger the story became. Then came another revelation that poured fuel directly onto the fire. Discussions surrounding online shopping links, children's clothing, brand promotion, and lifestyle marketing began resurfacing. Critics pointed to these examples as proof that family imagery wasn't accidental but intentional. And suddenly, the controversy evolved from a disagreement about parenting choices into something much larger. It became a debate about authenticity itself. Because if the message is privacy, critics ask, why does publicity keep finding its way back into the picture? The answers remain fiercely disputed. Supporters insist loving parents can share selective glimpses of family life without exploitation. Critics insist the pattern tells a very different story. Either way, one thing has become impossible to deny. The scrutiny is growing. The questions are multiplying. The controversy becomes even more explosive when you follow the trail beyond social media posts and look at the broader pattern critics claim has emerged over the years. What started as questions about photographs soon evolved into a much larger discussion involving products, branding, family identity, and the future consequences for two children who have no voice in any of these decisions. According to royal commentators, the issue isn't a single post or a single photograph. It's the accumulation of countless moments that, when viewed together, create a picture many find impossible to ignore.
The more we learn about Meghan Markle, the more we realize that she doesn't get out of bed unless there's some sort of profit to be made or money to earn, and she'll use her children ruthlessly, just like she's used her husband incredibly ruthlessly, and the royal family ruthlessly, to build her brand, build her image, get her truth across.
The criticism reached another level when discussions surfaced about products connected to family imagery and even references to Archie and Lilibet within broader commercial ventures. For critics, this wasn't merely clever marketing. They argued it represented something far more significant. They claimed the royal connection itself had become one of the most valuable assets available, and every public reminder of that connection carried tremendous commercial value. Suddenly, every Every birthday post, every family snapshot, and every carefully staged glimpse into home life was being viewed through an entirely different lens. Then came one of the most uncomfortable comparisons of all. Longtime royal observers began contrasting the current situation with the approach taken by Princess Diana decades earlier. Diana lived under extraordinary pressure and relentless media attention, yet many believe she fought fiercely to preserve as much normalcy as possible for her children, whether at theme parks, fast food restaurants, or everyday outings. She appeared determined to let William and Harry experience life beyond palace walls.
When Meghan was growing up, she dreamed of Hollywood stardom and being a big person on a big stage. When Harry was growing up, he dreamed of being anonymous and not recognized ever he goes. The reality is, and it's painful to watch from someone that's dealt with Harry since he was a teenager. Meghan is living her dream. Harry is living his nightmare.
That comparison has become a powerful part of the debate because it raises difficult questions about what genuine protection actually looks like. Is privacy simply hiding faces from cameras? Or is it something deeper? Is it shielding children from becoming part of a public narrative altogether? Critics argue the distinction matters enormously, particularly when children are too young to understand the consequences. As these arguments intensified, another troubling possibility began to emerge. What happens years from now? What happens when Archie and Lilibet become old enough to explore the internet themselves? What happens when they discover years of headlines, debates, controversies, product discussions, social media campaigns, and public arguments centered around their identities before they were old enough to give consent?
Meghan is never a spare part in anything. She wants to be number one. She wants to be number 100. She wants to be number one right through to a million. She wants to be the only one. Unfortunately, the world is going to come crashing down on her one of these days because people have been seeing through her for a long time.
For many observers, that future moment represents the heart of the story, because eventually these children will no longer be children. They will become young adults asking questions. Questions about why certain decisions were made. Questions about family relationships. Questions about public exposure. Questions about the role they played in a story they never personally chose to enter. The debate becomes even more emotional when discussions shift toward the wider royal family. Critics argue that distance from grandparents, cousins, and royal traditions creates another layer of complexity. As years pass, relationships become harder to rebuild. Absence becomes normal. Familiarity fades, and every public controversy adds another obstacle to any future reconciliation. Meanwhile, Prince Harry remains at the center of an increasingly complicated paradox. This is the same man who spent years speaking passionately about privacy, media intrusion, and the personal damage caused by public exposure. Yet today, he finds himself connected to a world where family moments continue appearing online and where public attention remains a central part of the Sussex brand. For critics, that contradiction is impossible to overlook. Some see him as trapped. Others see him as supportive. Others simply see a man who has chosen silence. But silence itself has become part of the story. Every post that remains online, every photograph, every branding decision, every public appearance, they all continue to fuel speculation about what role Harry truly plays behind the scenes. And perhaps that's why this controversy refuses to disappear. Because beneath the royal drama, beneath the celebrity headlines, beneath the branding arguments and social media debates, there remains a deeper question about responsibility. Not responsibility to the public, not responsibility to the media, responsibility to children who depend entirely on adults to make choices on their behalf. The stakes become even higher because this conversation extends far beyond one family. It reflects a modern culture increasingly obsessed with visibility, engagement, influence, and personal branding. Millions of parents face smaller versions of the same dilemma every day. How much should children appear online? Where is the line between sharing and exposure? When does a memory become content? And when does content become something else entirely? That is why this story continues generating such intense reactions. It isn't merely about Meghan, Harry, or the royal family. It is about trust, privacy, influence, and the lasting impact of choices made long before children are old enough to understand them. The questions remain unanswered. The controversy continues growing. And somewhere in the middle of all the noise, two young children are growing up while the world debates decisions made in their name, leaving a lingering mystery that may not truly be resolved until they are old enough to tell their own side of the story.